Are live. Hello. Welcome to the Homegrown Filmmakers Screenwriting Workshop. Yay! I'm so glad to have Lizzy with me today. We are going to be taking a look at this short film script that I recently drafted. So, something new that I've been doing on the channel is I've been doing a live stream for several mornings every week. I start at 5 a.m. our time. So super early in the morning for me and anyone who lives kind of on the West Coast. But I've been doing live streams. They're probably for about an hour and a half-ish, and we just kind of hang out and do some writing sprints together, and it's a good way to be committed to actually sitting down and getting some writing done. So that's been super fun to be doing lately, and because of that, it actually only took me, I want to say a week and a half to draft a short film. So I was like, okay, now what I do? And I was thinking, well, let's just keep live streaming and let's analyze the script and make a plan for revisions. And I never, ever do that process by myself. I always have Lizzy and others, but mostly Lizzy, come help me break down the script and see what needs to happen. So let's see, Noah is here, Noah Holston. Hi Noah, so glad that you could tune in. And Megan is here. Hi Megan, glad that you could tune in. Megan's been coming to the morning live streams too.
Oh, okay.
I didn't really have a plan.
Okay.
I guess I should make sure that you guys can hear us and see us and all that sort of stuff. It's looking good on my phone, at least.
Okay. Did you want to start by reading through the script, or did you just kind of want to launch into like my first thoughts, impressions after reading it for the first time?
This is a good question. I think I would want to launch in kind of first impressions and stuff. I don't know if we wanted to talk at all about
kind of like our process,
or we don't really have like an established process, or just maybe kind of the mindset going into revisions.
Okay, the mindset going into revisions
and what you're looking for. And
well, I kind of split, I have a few notes right here, and I kind of split my revisions into, I don't know how detailed we're going to get, but like I kind of split it into two categories of like notes that I have for the actual scripting part of it, like the way you wrote it. Like that, I have a couple notes for that, and then I have just like overarching thoughts about kind of like the story. And I normally at this stage, when it's kind of like a first draft, I'm not really looking at the dialogue so much, because since it's a rough draft, it's more like to see like, okay, because you did write a treatment for this, right?
Kind of. I had written the first version of the treatment, and it got way too elaborate.
Right.
And I think I showed that to you. And
so we talked about that together.
And I decided to kind of let a lot of that go and just focus on, okay, how could you tell this story really, really simply? One scene, a few characters.
Right.
Because it was far more elaborate in the treatment.
Was.
So I didn't really have a treatment. I had a little bit like a bullet point outline of breaking, because this is kind of one scene. It has a little break in it.
Yeah.
So I just kind of wrote out, okay, this is the first half, or this is the first third, this is the middle third, and then this is the last third, and kind of just mapping out the characters and the arc of the scene.
Okay.
Max is here. Hi, Max.
Hi, Max.
Glad you could tune in.
Yeah. So since it's a more of a first draft and you kind of had an outline and treatment, the first pass of edits is more just kind of like my mindset is more looking at the overarching story and the characters as a broad picture, because we kind of have to figure out the big blocks, like is it working, is it selling, is the theme or the message coming across, and like are these the scenes that actually are needed to convey the story before we like go into like, oh, you misspelled something or change this wording of the line, you know, because you're gonna like you're gonna be reworking the lines like until like the day you're shooting.
Yeah.
Like, because the actors are gonna come in and change the lines to like what flows and makes sense to them. So I didn't really make any notes about like line changes or anything.
Sorry, I'm just remembering that I should post on Instagram that we're kind of live and invite people, so that's what I'm doing right now.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
I've been trying to remember to post a little bit more on Instagram and actually like tell people that I'm doing things.
Mhm. Yeah. Yes, that's mainly my mindset of kind of like script revision, and it's also not just analyzing like what's wrong. I'm also looking at it of like, okay, what is working and what part of the structure did work as well. So, because I know me personally, I tend to just like kind of get focused on the, oh, this didn't work and that's not right, and you know, like you still have to focus on what did work and then what didn't, and then figure out why what didn't work. Oh wow, that was fast. I just made like a
Wow. I wonder if there's a way to
link it.
Make it a. Okay, I'm just not gonna. Next time, I'll have it more together. Okay. This is what I keep telling myself, because I was intimidated by doing the live streams and kind of just figuring out all the tech and like. I'm not a tech person, guys. It's a big learning curve, so I was like, just do it. Just show up. It doesn't matter. Megan says, that's a good point, Lizzy. Start with developmental edits before you touch the detailed edits that might change anyway. And Noah says 100%. All right, let's dig in.
Okay.
I am excited. I did want to say before we start what my mindset is.
Yeah.
Kind of going into revisions. Maybe this is just the way that I work. I make it a point to really try and let go of what I've done and just be like, okay, like I spat it out. That's a version of of the story. It's by no means the best version, and so I still have. Sorry, I got some.
Yeah.
I still have what inspired me, and I still have the story that I want to tell.
Right.
The question is this the correct version of that story that you want to tell? Or how do you make it better? And so I think walking into edits and revisions and meetings, just being really, really open, and that allows you to be more creative.
Yeah.
You still kind of need your center of what you're trying to accomplish, your goal, so that you can orient yourself to something.
Right, yeah.
But other than that, I really think I like to be really, really open.
Yeah, that definitely is true, that whether you're giving edits or receiving edits, you still have to know what you want your story to be about, because then it's easy to let stuff go if you're like, well, obviously that didn't work, you know, and it didn't convey what you want it to convey. So yeah, that is definitely very true, which I think that's what I don't like about modern movies, is that it seems like they don't know what story they want to tell, and so they just go all over. Anyway, okay.
So, Sins of the Father. It's a like drama mystery short film.
Yeah.
It's 16 pages long, and it's pretty much one scene. It's this character, Alana, kidnaps the other character, Peter, and she uses him to lure his father to where they're at, and they end up in this kind of three-way face-off Alana is there seeking revenge against his father for things that Peter did not know about.
Right.
And things get revealed and drama happens.
Drama happens.
So, first impressions.
It did not feel like it was 16 pages long.
Yay! I already know that it's way too long.
It did not feel long.
I'm glad to hear that it wasn't just a slog.
I mean, it got a little wordy at times in the dialogue, but, that...
Par for the course.
Yeah, that's just you.
We always have to edit me down.
Yes.
That is well known, well established.
Annie likes her flowery dialogue. Okay, let me see. Overall, I have to say that the first time I read this, I had just come off of a project where I was the production designer, so I was immediately looking at everything through the eyes of a production designer and going there's not enough description of the tone or
Well, that's a good note that you, looking at it as a production designer, you didn't feel like there was enough for you to work off of. If you were to, you're coming onto this project as a production designer and you're going off the script.
A little bit. This is getting a little too detailed, but I kept noticing that there was inconsistencies in the
Yes.
in the mention of props. That because there's a tape recorder that just comes out of nowhere, and it says that she sets a phone on his lap and then later it's on the table, and you're I was what? So there were a couple things that took me out of it while I was reading it, but that's mainly because I was looking at the details and stuff. The whole the opening, because it just says it's a fancy living room. Mm-hmm. And it just says, it introduces Peter, the main character, and then it just starts with he's bound in a dining room chair. And then it goes straight into introducing the other character. And so I didn't get that it was and then later it says that she goes around and turns on all the lights. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't get this I didn't get the ominous mood. Shadows
and silhouette, and that's what I was seeing in my head.
Yeah. That, as a production designer, you don't have to describe what the set looks like. In fact, don't describe what the set looks like, because then you're doing the production designer's job. But it's still, there wasn't a mood introduced, and so it was hard to, kind of pick up on the mood at first. That's kind of one thought that I had. Overall, I felt I liked it. I'll preface that. I did like it. I liked it a lot. I felt like all the characters were real. They felt realistic. But almost to the point that they were so realistic that they were just slightly, they were too normal. You know what I mean?
For the genre, they needed to be a little bit more...
Well, okay, it was mainly Peter.
Okay, Peter.
Peter reacted perfectly like a human. He felt human, but he was a perfect normal person, and normal people are boring. So, Peter himself was a little... he was a little bland compared to Robert, the father, and... Alana. Just because they had more emotions and more secrets being revealed, and Peter, for the most part, is mostly an audience proxy until the end, and so it's sad. I remember the first time I read it, I was kind of I almost forgot that Peter was there, and since I was skipping reading through the lines, I actually missed some of his lines and thought it was Robert who was saying them, and not necessarily Peter, but I also kept getting Peter and Robert, their names mixed up. So I know that won't happen, on set or anything, but it was a little bit if the names were obviously different, that would help while you're reading it. But that's purely I've
gotten this note before on things. I got your characters mixed up. Their names are too similar. I don't know what to do with that.
Mm-hmm. Because you're like, well, it's not going to be that way when you watch
Yeah, you're not going to get your characters confused when you're watching. So,
But I wonder if that's a character voice problem.
maybe.
Because
It's not about the names, it's about...
they sound the same.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was more like, yeah. Because, like, I don't know. You could kind of see it. Like, you could tell that Robert was using a much larger vocabulary than the other two.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not Alana as much, but he definitely was using a larger, older vocabulary than Peter. So there were times where I was like, okay, obviously that's Robert who's talking. But there were a couple times where I was like, it wasn't until I read it through the second time that I was like, oh, wait, Peter said that. Oh, okay. And yeah, so I felt, okay, and again, this is, I've been thinking a lot about this recently, of the perspective that you write the script action from, because, like, me as a beginning writer, or I know I had the tendency to write it as the audience. And I think that in this instance, what would make Peter more present is if all the action was written from more of his perspective, if that makes sense. And therefore that would inform, like, the DP, oh, we should be focusing on Peter and his reactions. Like, through a lot of the dialogue, I know you don't, as a scriptwriter, you're not supposed to put in too much of, direction for the actors, but it did kind of feel like Peter disappeared in some of the bigger conversations because we missed, like, his reactions. Like, we didn't realize that his reactions were important, and so we weren't viewing, like, his arc and his progression got kind of lost because it wasn't in the dialogue, and so it kind of has to be written in the action.
Yeah, Megan says, I think Peter is missing a voice of his own. He felt used to tell the story and theme rather than be his own person.
Yeah, audience proxy. That's what that is. Which, yeah.
It's hard because I come at it from a director standpoint, which is I don't want to put too much in there because I want there to be lots of room for the actor.
Right.
And me as a director working with the actor, and what's the balance there between, I know that I would be directing this, and so it doesn't necessarily matter, but if you were to hand the script off to a different director, what's the balance between telling them what to do and suggest, but still letting them know what your intention was? Because I think a good director could still read this and pick out, oh, Peter has a whole arc. It's there. You just have to keep the camera on him and help and direct your actor to show the arc.
Yeah, I guess I just feel like as an actor, if I read this, it would definitely open up a lot of discussion with me and the director about like, what's the arc that you want? What do you imagine? So, like, there's a lot of room to play with, but almost like slightly just too much room to play with, because it's like, okay, so like I have a specific instance. So here, like on page 9, and it's when it's like Alana reveals herself as the daughter of the journalist who was murdered, and it says, so they're talking, and she never like outright says it. She's just kind of implying that she was the little girl, because she's telling the story, like, the little girl watched the murder, whatever. And so this line, Robert has already put the pieces together. Am I remembering a previous version?
You might be, because I edited that a little bit.
You edited that a little bit? Okay. Because there's a later on, because like instead of saying Robert has already put the pieces together, like I think in an earlier version there was another line of action a couple lines later that said like, oh, and Peter finally figures out what they're talking about. Man, I messed it up already.
As Robert I think the line, it was like, as Robert starts talking, Peter puts everything together.
Yeah, Peter puts it together. So, like, I would change this line to...
Be Peter-centered?
Yeah, Peter-centered, that he's, like... Where Robert is responding, like, I'm sorry you had to live through that. And then Peter's like... Peter's like, wait, what? And then, so that you see his realization. Because that's a big moment for him as a character, is where he realizes... this is what everything's about. So, like, that, because you have to find that balance between putting in enough action to inform the actors of the arc, but not too much that you're doing their job. And I think that an important realization like that does need to be in the action.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to hit the key points. Yeah.
Okay.
That's just what I was thinking about, because I remember being the ending is suddenly like, and Peter came out of, his character arrived a little bit, and like it was kind of hard to connect with him as a main character because.
Yeah, I know we're gonna get into kind of big picture stuff, and I'm wondering if it's actually tied to some of the big picture stuff in remembering the original treatment that was far more elaborate.
Yes.
There was much, much more room. Like, this scene still kind of existed.
Yes.
It was split up a little bit differently, and but there was a lot more room for Peter to be a character.
Indeed.
But I think that's where the theme... I guess probably one of my biggest things reading it through was I was like, this didn't accomplish quite what I was wanting to. It's a very good foundation, but it didn't get all the way there, and it's
felt like a cliche done well.
Yeah.
Which is better than other things that I've seen. So like I liked that part, that I was like, oh, this feels like all those revenge plot movies that I've seen where it was just like, oh gosh, this is just so cliche. But this one was like, oh, it's the cliche, but good. But there was still, like, I know that's not what you were going for. Mm-hmm. And so I remember kind of it ending and being like, I mean, it's good, but it's still missing something.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. So I'm thinking Peter's character is really, really tied into that.
Well, it doesn't help that he's literally tied to a chair the whole thing. Whole thing.
And so maybe that's the challenge that I do want to kind of brainstorm today, is getting back to the roots of what I wanted to do and figuring out how to bring it into this version of the story. Because it was in the first treatment, it just didn't make it all the way here.
Yeah, so what I do think the theme came out, which is revenge versus justice.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's kind of like what you're talking
about.
Well,
I think that's my problem, because that wasn't really my theme. That was like one layer of my theme.
Well, yeah, that's more like what I mean is like I knew that the overarching theme was revenge versus justice, but I didn't get the full argument for both, if you will. Like, and so like it didn't feel like it came out with a new statement about revenge versus justice.
Well, I think, because it wasn't supposed to be about revenge versus justice. It was supposed to be about revenge versus forgiveness. If you remember some of what we were talking about when I was first developing the idea, kind of the question that originally sparked it was, what causes someone to walk away from revenge?
Yeah, without it just being... And they decided it would be the good thing. They just decided to do the right thing and walk away. Like, everybody can agree that, like, walking away from revenge is a good thing, but, like, you were trying to explore why. Like,
what emotionally happens inside of someone when they are deciding to do the right thing?
Mm-hmm.
Which is more than just saying, it's revenge is wrong, you know?
Yeah, also, Megan had a point.
Megan agreed. Also, when I was reading it, I figured it out way earlier than the character, which is fine, but you may want to put the realization earlier, like after she witnessed everything. Are you talking about the reveal of Alana being the daughter of the journalist?
Yeah, it's on page 9. Yeah. I mean, it does seem pretty obvious, because since I knew the treatment, I knew everything from the beginning, but that is a good note from someone who didn't know that reveal coming.
So, Megan, are you saying that is when you had the realization? After the line, she witnessed everything? Or are you saying you realized it a lot earlier in the script? Because that is kind of where I intended you to notice. I just didn't want to break up the action by saying, and Peter and Robert realized.
Yeah.
You know, that is where I intended the audience to realize. We get through her monologue, and then we're going to spend time on reactions. As the monologue is happening, but you can't write it out that way. Yes, the reveal, the way she's talking
In third.
the way she sins. I know that's a typo. I'm just trying to figure out what. Talking in third person the rest of the time?
Yeah, her whole monologue is in third person.
I don't know what that means. I mean, I know what that means, but like, what is the point of saying that? I don't understand what's being pointed out. You think that the rest of the monologue should be in first person?
I think that might be what she's saying. That she goes, the girl witnessed, so it sounds like she's saying the killer didn't know it, but the little girl was there that night. She witnessed everything. And then I was searching for, I think that might be what she's saying. So that it's very, like, it depends on how much of a reveal you want it to be.
It's not meant to be a huge, like, ah, everything changes, because you know that she has hidden motivations. Nothing she's done makes any sense up to this point.
That's
for
true.
the identities that she's claimed to have. First she was a victim, and then she's like this detective person trying, out for justice or whatever. And none of that makes sense with what she's doing.
Yeah.
So it's not meant to be like a huge shock. It's just like, oh, I get it.
There it is.
I get it. Okay. And my phone is gonna I don't know. I'd have to think about if I want the rest in first person. I like it in third person, so that might just be a preference thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it was the emotional tag for me that was like, oh, here it is. That's being specific.
Well, I don't know, because I actually had a really hard time coming up with what to tag this, because if you don't tag it with anything, is there enough there to
just
realize, for the realization to happen? Or is she just reciting facts? I wanted to give a hint as to, in my head, this monologue is something she's rehearsed for 15 years.
Right.
And that's why it's not in first person. Because she's reciting something that she's practiced and practiced. Megan says, it's not about the shock as much as the monologue being in third person. But it could work. Just my opinion.
Well, see, this I think is okay, so back up. The reason you wrote this was because you wanted you want practice as a director, and it would be practice for actors. Like it's a more meaty acting piece, and that's why, kind of like the why you're writing this. So leaving it in third person, I don't know, I feel like then it would be up to the actor to make the audience go, oh, she's talking about herself.
Mm-hmm.
Which I got that when I was reading it. That's what the emotional tag to me said was, oh, this is actor's playground right here.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It depends. Yeah.
I think that's what I wanted it to be, though. I wanted it to be actors, interpret.
Yeah.
you
There
know,
you go.
I'm not really interested in, dictating how it's supposed to go.
Right.
We're setting up a playground.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'll think about that as we're rewriting.
Yeah. But we were talking about overarching theme and structure.
Cheers.
Because you were saying that well, do we want to talk about why you wanted to write this?
We could. Well, so the Last of Us series came out, and we've been fans of the game for a while. We don't play, but we know the story because it's a really well done story.
Indeed.
And I watched a couple of people play through Last of Us 2, which is completely, utterly about revenge. It's like a revenge. It's about how revenge will being obsessed with revenge will completely destroy your life. But they somehow managed to say that without any sort of redemptive sort of anything at all. It's so depressing. Because
I refuse to watch the playthrough.
There's two characters who are pitted against each other. You play both of them at different times, and they're both seeking revenge against the other, and they end up just completely destroying their lives. Both of them completely destroy their lives.
They destroy their own and each other's lives.
Yeah, their own and each other's lives. And at the end, they're fighting, like the end fight, and one of them just decides to walk away. Like, okay, I'm going to do the right thing now. And you're just like, what caused that? There's no setup for why she walked away.
After you've spent the entire game.
Weeks and weeks of hunting each other and killing each other's friends and just like completely destroying each other's relationships and lives. And so I was like, maybe I feel a little bugged about this.
Yeah.
And the more we talked about it, the more it came down to that moment. What causes someone to walk away? Emotionally, because it wasn't really about values. Like, you can have the value that you're not going to take revenge on people or revenge isn't good. Mm-hmm. And I think that there are personalities who would have more of a tendency towards revenge. I think personalities can kind of fall into two camps of one directs their anger outwards and the other directs their anger inwards. And they're both just as destructive. They're just destructive in different ways. And so I didn't really want to talk about that there was a character whose personality was to not choose revenge. That's not what I wanted to talk about. We're talking about a character who would choose revenge, who has a tendency toward that. What makes them walk away emotionally?
Right.
And so that got me thinking about forgiveness. And I think I have to remember kind of the roots.
I know, the original. Well, because like I remember when we were first talking about it, is the kind of like the idea that I wanted to see was how do you not take revenge on somebody who is obviously evil?
And what would differentiate between revenge and justice in that instance?
Yeah, that's what I remember we talked a lot about, and I think that's where the kind of like the more revenge versus justice kind of thing played out, and like that's what we talked about a lot when we were working on the first treatment, was more of like Alana's ideology about, because she's like sitting here going like, but I'm not taking revenge, it's justice, but she really is taking revenge. And so like that's what makes Alana very interesting, because she's like lying to herself the whole time. And I forgot what we were talking about with Peter,
but yeah, let me
okay.
Megan says, playground style makes sense. Good point. My bad. No, it's not your bad. Like, I really appreciate hearing your opinions. And even if I don't agree, it's very helpful to at least be able to defend my own position. That helps me become more aware of why I made the choices that I do.
Indeed.
When often they're coming out of a very intuitive place and I don't understand. I'm like, this feels right, Yeah. Not that I could ever express it until somebody kind of comes against it. And I'm like, no, actually, I think I did make the right choice. Or not,
Yeah.
It's very helpful. The way you set up and paid off the theme was brilliant, Annie. Oh, thanks. I got the revenge versus forgiveness. Oh, yay. I'm glad you got revenge versus forgiveness. I just wanted to delve into forgiveness a bit more. And this is why I think it's connected to Peter, because he is meant to be in a arc of forgiveness, but when I got to that point, I couldn't get him there. You know, it was like, this girl just killed his father. He's not going to turn right around and say, it's okay, I forgive you. You know, but I think if we had more going on with him, and this is what was in the original treatment, is he had a huge grudge against his father. That was the piece. And that was kind of his personality, is his father was this rich guy who provided everything for him physically, but the relationship wasn't actually there, and he had a huge grudge against the way that his father raised him. And
so Peter was walking into this situation with Alana way more because he was like guilty, because he was like it was his dad had tried to reconcile with him, and he walked away from his dad, and then his dad died, and so now he's like guilty and angry and wanting to take revenge on this girl, but also like kind of be like, well, so that is interesting though, because I did notice on my second read through that Peter asks Alana to forgive his dad. Which
does he?
Yes.
I forgot that part.
So Peter is the one like advocating for forgiveness. Where is that part?
Page 13, he goes, no, please, Alana, revenge will solve nothing. You could do it. You could kill both of us and walk away, but what will that change? What good will you have done? And she says, I'll be able to sleep at night knowing he never breathes again. And Peter says, it won't make anything better. I'm so sorry for what my family did to yours. It never should have happened. One murder after another, but nothing could wash away the stain of what he's done. And it will be the same for you. And she says, I'm not a murderer. I want justice. And Peter says, you have it. Is that the part you're talking about?
No, he literally said the word forgive somewhere.
I cleaned up just a tiny little bit before I sent it out. You might have read the...
No, it was. I read this like an hour ago. Nope. All right, at least I thought he did.
Use this. If you want justice, this is the way. Expose all this, and on the other side, we can be free. No one else has to die.
Well, yeah, and Alana says, like, she doesn't want an apology. That's interesting. Wait, I thought he said forgive.
Well, and so this is where... I just didn't feel like there was space to get him all the way to forgiveness. But in the original idea of the treatment, when he talks to her about forgiveness, he isn't talking about him forgiving her or her forgiving his father. He's talking about him forgiving his father and letting go of this grudge. And
okay, maybe I was wrong. I didn't see it in there. Dang it.
And so maybe there's a way to bring some of that back. It's just I didn't feel like there was room for
it.
I don't know. Can you imagine a version of this scene where Peter is still angry with his father? Robert asks for forgiveness at the end when he's dying. He says, "Forgive me."
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking of?
Maybe. I don't know. No, I thought it was he said, why can't you just like forgive and let go or something like I thought so. Anyway. I'm trying to picture how that would manifest. Cause like it could be there in the beginning cause Alana's like, call your father or, call your parents. And Peter could be very like, oh, well, my father doesn't care or
I mean, we'd have to set it up, but like, how would it play out is the question. Because so you would have to have.
Yeah. Well, because currently in the version, Peter.
It's almost like
yeah.
what? Sorry, my
Oh.
brains. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, currently, in this version, Peter is defending his father,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like there's like this big push and pull of like Alana's like accusing Robert, like it was for money, it was for all these things, and Robert's like has his own like secret reason hiding. And I think that when him revealing like the actual reason why he killed his brother,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I feel like that would be the moment where Peter switches, because that would have to be, because I would that if you spin it, that Peter's like, oh, my dad is just like my grandfather and my uncle, they were all, money spoiled them, they, like Peter Peter could have very much like an attitude of like, oh, it's when my life is threatened, that's when you decide to appear in my life, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
But then, so like he has no, like I can imagine his attitude being a lot of like, why am I here? Of course my dad is bringing him into his mess. Like,
He doesn't appreciate the legacy of his family.
Yeah, he doesn't appreciate the legacy of his family, and he probably is like ready to believe Alana that he did do these terrible things. And then it's,
I went a different direction. I went what Alana, whatever her name is, reveals makes Peter understand his father and why he is the way that he is. So you'd have to connect the wounds that are between father and son to what Robert did. So if Robert, his dad died and then he killed his brother, like how would that make him act as a father? And if it and if you're having a son rebel against like the legacy and the inheritance of the family, then it's because the father was like, be grateful what I have to give you, and be grateful you're part of this family, and and kind of that strict sort of, this is what is expected of you as a member of this family, and that's why he's rebelling against the family.
Like, okay, so you brought up the signet ring. I think this is, we're bouncing all over the place, but the signet ring could actually be a symbol, because right now it says that Peter's wearing a signet ring. What if it's Robert wears a signet ring, and at the end Peter like takes it and puts it on, where he's like, I forgive my father, I'm accepting being a part of the family, like forgiving like the past, kind of. I don't know if that would be weird.
I think it could work, but you'd have to build what Peter would be doing by accepting the legacy of his family, which is a family of corrupt murderers.
Yeah.
Is him actually saying, I accept the responsibility of the actions of my family and the consequence. And with a I am breaking the cycle, I am changing it. I am changing what this legacy is, but he has to actually be part of the legacy if he wants to change it.
Yeah.
So we'd have to figure out how to build that in there first. It isn't.
Well, because I think that's actually that gives Peter a lot more character, is because if he is rebelling at the start, that makes him the perfect character to break the cycle, because he is already rebelling. He's just rebelling in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Because right now,
well, he sees the problems and he's rebelling instead of
trying to solve them.
Well, yeah, having an avenue to solve them. Yeah. Megan, I think Lizzie has a good point. If you have Peter already not like Robert, then instead of Peter defending his dad, have him accidentally tag team with Alana pushing Robert to defend himself. Yeah. That's a good point too, because I was having trouble. Like, what makes Robert break? Like, what makes him?
Yeah, I had that note too, that when I was reading the script.
But if it's Peter coming at him,
yeah,
that would do it.
Yeah. Well, and like I can also imagine that would make I feel like that would make Alana a lot more like, but wait, you were on my side, and then I killed your father, and now you're against me, kind of. You know, they would create that kind of tension going on a little bit. And there was a thought that I was just thinking.
I still think you'd have to do it so that what Alana reveals makes Peter understand his father and understand his motivations for everything, where before he just kind of attributed it to authoritarianism and power tripping and being obsessed with legacy. Instead, and Alana's like, no, he killed, or everything comes out and it's like, I killed my brother because he killed my father and he was destroying this family, and that put you at jeopardy. The legacy is what I have to give you. It's almost like Robert doesn't trust his character anymore, because he didn't think he'd ever do something like that. And so it's like he went this, here son, here's all of this money and this legacy, but I will keep distant from you because I don't want my character to get on you, the characteristics of this family. And so he's like, you can't just do that. You can't parse the good from the bad that way.
Yeah, because in the current version, it does, like, the way Robert talks about Peter, it makes Peter sound like this perfect little angel who can do no wrong, and it feels a little, well, you're like, okay, you're like good on Robert, like that Robert was trying to, like, break the cycle with my son. Like, it was almost like it felt way more like a naive person being exposed to the real world, and how they are what are they going to do? Are they going to be dirtied by the world, or are they going to choose better? Like, that's kind of what the feeling of this version comes out.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was more like, because then it becomes more the ending is Peter is faced with the, like, because if he kills Alana, it would be continuing the, like, he would be falling prey to the family legacy, if you will, kind of. Legacy keeps coming up.
I have a feeling that's going to be a constant theme in whatever we do.
Legacy?
Not legacy, but the idea, the
generational.
Generational effects. Generational trajectories. Yeah.
Okay, so
Megan says, then he admits about killing his brother for his son, and that changes Peter's perspective.
I think partly.
I don't think that would, though. Because Peter would just be like, because I
didn't ask for that.
The characters. That's exactly it. The characters that I have in my head. Robert always claims to do things for Peter.
And he's probably like,
yeah, but I didn't ask for you to do that for me. I didn't ask you to send me away. I didn't ask you to handle my problems. I didn't ask you to,
coddle me or.
It wasn't coddle. It was really strict, but it was like. You're trying to make me into who you think a good person is, but you didn't ask me who I wanted to be, It
would almost be interesting if Alana, Alana pitches Peter against Robert.
Well, that was the original thing, remember?
Right.
Well, in the original idea, Alana, becomes Peter's girlfriend, and she's just trying to get close to Robert. She totally deceives him.
Right.
And but as she gets to know Peter in becoming his girlfriend, she starts seeing the fractures between him and Robert. And she uses those to pit them against each other.
Well, I thought she tried to, bring them back together, because she was trying to get close to Robert before.
Right.
Well, yeah, because
but she does it but she isn't like, oh, you should forgive your father. That's not what she says. She says you should get close to him so you can influence him or manipulate him or get his money or she wasn't advocating for forgiving him.
Okay.
She was that little devil voice on his shoulder saying, your father deserves to be manipulated, and he deserves to get what's coming to him. And Peter starts agreeing with her because he has a grudge against him. Anyway,
Yeah.
we don't have all the time to do that.
No. I was curious. I know that you were wanting to make.
I do feel like this would be a very interesting version for Alana, though, where it's like she's like been dreaming about this revenge moment for 15 years or something
And then
like
Peter
that.
just
And they're just she's like set up this whole thing, and Peter and Robert are like reconciling and having it out about the relationship. She's like, this was not what I planned. You're ruining my moment with all of your stuff.
I thought you were gonna say that she's like gonna have like a. I thought you were gonna say that she's like about to have her monologue or whatever, and then Peter just launches in like, "You what? Dad?"
Yeah, wait, one moment, Dad, what?
Yeah, yeah. She's like, yeah, because I think that would make when Robert is like, "Forgive me, son," and then dies, and then Peter just like all just like crashing guilt and like
anger
and like where he was like, I finally understood my father and now he's dead. Like that would be way more of him just being like at Alana. But then what stops it?
This is a good question. Well, so what we were talking about.
And the drama turns into comedy.
You gotta have a little bit in there.
Just a wee bit.
What it kind of came down to at the heart of it, understanding revenge and forgiveness, theoretically, was kind of the forgive so that you will be forgiven. That he can't.
Oh.
But I still don't understand how to display that exactly because Peter is still the one who needs to forgive. And then he needs to forgive Alana? That didn't make sense. I don't think it's about forgiving Alana. I really don't think that's it.
But what if this is a major change, but
What if the film is from the father's perspective instead of the son? But what would what would the father's journey of revenge or forgiveness be about? So Alana would have to kill Peter? That would get the characters in the right order where.
But no, because that would make Alana have to forgive Robert.
Okay, we have to math that one out for me a minute.
Because
it's algebra, guys.
It's algebra. Because the whole point is whoever the main character is.
Mm-hmm.
What the arc that we want them to go through is they have every not right, but it would be totally understandable if they took revenge in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't. And we're exploring why.
So if the main character is Robert and he's taking revenge for Peter, so Alana kills Peter and Robert's, because we would understand if Alana killed Peter, we would understand why Robert would want revenge against Alana and be on his side.
Yeah.
Because Peter was innocent in the feud between Alana and Robert.
Yeah. But with the way that we're talking about Peter now, that Peter not only has to forgive Alana, but he has to forgive his dad and therefore receive forgiveness about how he was treating his dad.
But that's not really what I guess that was what I was saying. It's the forgiveness piece is not about
Alana.
Is not about Peter forgiving Alana.
Right.
It's about him forgiving his dad and the question of will Alana forgive his dad? Which she doesn't. She kills him. But she's the counter character, so that's fine. But it's not really about in forgiving his dad. because, like what you said, all the pain and the rage
and the
that
guilt.
would come, and the guilt that would come at Alana, the guilt is actually, I think, probably one of the bigger driving factors, and guilt can be solved with forgiveness. Rage, not so much. Like you can choose not to act on your rage, but that doesn't mean it goes away.
Yeah. Well, I guess I feel like
because
that he would want to kill
the
somebody.
bones were there. Okay, yeah.
The fact that he would want to kill somebody because his father is dead, I feel like would be telling to Peter about how he felt about his dad.
No, I think it really is the forgive so that you can be forgiven. Like, it's not Peter who needs to be forgiven, it's Robert, though, so that's why it's confusing, but...
Well,
so
it would work if we
He cannot preach to Alana about forgiveness when he himself has not forgiven his dad. That's the crux of it. And so when she kills him, when she kills Robert, he cannot blame her because he has not forgiven Robert. And so seeking revenge against her is very unjust from his viewpoint, his opinion. Does that make sense?
Sorry, I was distracted by...
So here's a question. Why forgive someone who's unforgivable?
Well, I think...
Because it's forgive so that you will be forgiven.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, is that the
It's not about the other person.
Yeah. In this context that we're talking, okay, she said, empathy, fears of becoming the one you hate.
That's the same thing, though. Forgive so that you will be forgiven.
Yeah. Yeah. That it's...
Because if you do not forgive, you are unforgivable. Is and so it is empathy with where the other person is.
Yeah, it's if you say someone is unforgivable, that means you are unforgivable. And so
we were talking about this the other day. This is why God can be vengeful and people can't.
We were? Sorry. We were talking about this?
I don't remember what. It was a different instance of that.
God can be vengeful, but people cannot.
What were we talking about? Something else where God can do this, but people cannot. Why is it a sin when people do this, but the Bible clearly shows that God can be this way? But this is why. Because God doesn't need forgiving. You cannot say that someone is unforgivable without also saying that you yourself are unforgivable.
Indeed.
God can say people are unforgivable.
Well, okay, so that's where Max's point comes in better, because Robert is saying, because if it was from the father's perspective, that Robert would be like, well, if I say she's unforgivable, that means I'm unforgivable because I've done the same things.
So here's a question. Does Robert think that Alana is in the right? See, Robert's not thinking of things in right and wrong and just and unjust. He's just thinking about protecting Peter and protecting his legacy. He's just not on. That's why the argument is between Peter and Alana, because they're actually the ones dealing with that question. The way we have it set up, Robert is not asking questions about forgiveness or revenge. He is just, I did what I did for my son, and that is his justification for the answer, am I unforgivable?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, he even recognizes that it was a wrong thing. Like, that he was like, I'm tore up about having to kill my brother, but my son mattered more to me. And like, but like in him wanting to like protect Peter from that, like you can already tell that he's like, oh, I knew it was bad. I knew it was wrong. It's like, it seems like Robert has come to terms with.
Well, and if
With
Peter
that-
hates him, it would be. I think he would feel that was his consequence, his punishment for the wrongs he done, is that
Right.
his son hates him.
Yeah. His son's alive, but his son hates him. Yeah, because with the way the setup is currently, I don't think Robert would have any qualms about just killing Alana right then and there.
I think
for
he.
killing Peter.
Well, I think that I think he would know that it's the wrong thing, but do it anyway.
Yeah. The way he is set up currently.
Yeah.
So I feel like we could set up Peter having a grudge against his father. I almost wonder if we could do the because Peter mentions getting on the bus. Like what you think about doing like one little opening scene of like where he gets like a call from his dad and he like angrily refuses it or something.
I just don't want to do any other locations.
Okay. Well, we could easily get that across with Alana's like, call your father, and he's like, I will not call him. you know.
No.
Yeah, no.
What do you want? Money? I don't want my father's money.
I feel like he would be like, sure, take my old man's money. It's dirty anyway. Or, you know, like, or, you know, just like the way he talks about it, you could probably get it across. So, back to the original question is what makes Peter understand his father? Because we were saying that learning that his father did all these things for him wouldn't do anything for him. That he'd be like, well, I didn't ask you to kill people for me.
Locations. Ah! Why don't you just use dialogue when Alana asks to call the dad?
I think that's what we just said, but
There's a lag.
yeah,
so
there's lag.
dialogue.
Man, you just said that. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I'm still. The lag makes everything so awkward. Okay, what it means that everything that Robert does has to stem from this set of circumstances. Who he is, you know? So that's what we're saying is Peter understands his father, sees it from his perspective, understands things. I think the devil's in the details. We'd have to come up with some things that Peter can say that indicate what their relationship is, what growing up with Robert was like.
Mm-hmm.
Brainstorm. That sounds like a brainstorm thing for Annie.
I think the heat is getting to me.
Yeah, it's getting warm in here.
Yeah.
Go away.
Does that still solve the question about why? Why? Like, I guess I feel like.
Well, I feel like I answered why. We just didn't. It wasn't set up. Like, did you get the parallel imagery that was happening at the end? So.
Well, he basically became Alana.
Yeah, that we have his dad kneeling and Alana holding the gun, with Peter asking her not to kill, and then we get through it's Alana kneeling with Peter holding the gun, kind of at the same question, same juncture.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do that with the cinematography, like the shots very, very similar. Like you understand the parallels that was Alana, here's Peter.
Yeah.
Grappling with the same choice, Thanks, sweetheart.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like the structure's already there for that.
Okay.
We just have to set it up better. What do you imagine the characterization of the father is? Is he the quiet, strong type, stoic and reserved, distant and withholding? Yeah, distant and withholding. I wouldn't say quiet, strong type. I would say quiet.
Strict. I would imagine strict. Almost like maybe a little micromanaging.
Oh yeah, very micromanaging. He's afraid of his son not having. Well, the problem is that he doesn't know what happened to him. Like, why did his brother think it was okay to kill his dad? Why did he feel like it was okay to kill his brother? Like, these are horrible things.
Indeed.
And so it's kind of like he's very afraid of his son being out of control the way that he felt he was out of control. Like, he's afraid of his son turning out like him. And so he micromanages his son away from anything that looks like it might have a tendency toward what he decides the tendency is toward. Like, I wouldn't say it's a tendency towards violence, or it would be what would be the things in Peter that Robert would be like, don't do that, don't think that, you know.
Yeah, I guess it would be more, I would imagine what Peter comes to understand is that like a lot of Robert's motivation was fear and not you know, and not like, because I would
not power and not authority and
that Peter,
you're my son, so you'll do as I say.
Yeah, or Peter would, I would imagine Peter would grow up feeling very, oh, I can't do anything right, or you know, only it's when I'm perfect that I
well, he doesn't want to turn out like his father either.
Yeah, he doesn't want to receive his father. Yeah, but like, I would imagine that Peter probably felt like he couldn't win his father's love his whole life. Like, he would grow up feeling like he couldn't measure up, and so he just stopped trying.
I think that would be early on. I would say stop trying very early, like 11, 12 years old at that point. And so by the time we get to grown-up Peter, he just doesn't care for his father's standards at all. But that's been ingrained in him for, you know, a decade now, to not care about his father's standards. I guess what I would say it differently, maybe it's the same thing, but it's in controlling Peter, he quashed Peter's real identity. And that's what Peter feels, is that he was never allowed to be himself. And that's why I say maybe it's the same thing, that he had to be someone else for his father to love and approve of him.
Yeah, well, what I was trying to get at is that this scene would have to be the moment where he realizes his father actually loves him. Okay, there's a lot of comments.
Yeah, okay. Megan says, so here's something dark. What if it's tragedy? Peter does shoot Alana and he takes the father's ring, symbolizing without forgiveness you become someone you couldn't forgive. I like happy endings, but I mean, I see that, but it's very Godfather.
Yeah.
Which
Indeed,
I was inspired a little bit by the Godfather, like tonally.
Yes.
But not, I don't think I want to do that. I did my tragic ending with The Road We Take. And I'm good with that tragic ending for a little while.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We love redemption.
I don't mind No, actually, this is not what there's. I do not mind dark endings or tragic endings if it makes you think. And I don't feel like if we did what Megan's suggesting, it would make you think. It would just be like, oh, that's really sad. Moving on.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought that the road we take did kind of pose a question, an interesting question that I hadn't really seen done before. I feel like I've seen that done before, what Megan is suggesting. Not that it's a bad idea, just not my cup of tea, I think. So Max says, so is he someone that has held his emotions in check, especially around his son, almost to the point of being afraid to show too much love? Yes, I would say that's true. Like, maybe the dad was really spoiled. And he attributes that to, maybe the dad and his brother, the uncle, were both really spoiled, and so he attributes that to how they turned out.
Yeah, well, I would also imagine that if your two sons, one was willing to kill you and the other was willing to kill the brother, the dad himself probably didn't receive much love from his dad. And so he, you know, he probably doesn't know how to show love.
The son has always looked up to him and tried to prove himself, so the reveal of killing breaks all of that for the son. It's like there's layers there.
So
let me think about that for a minute.
And the son has always looked up to him and tried to prove himself.
I think you could just do that. I think that was maybe what I was trying to do in this version, was a simple, Peter really looks up to his dad, and then he finds out all these horrible things about his dad, and it's that reveal that breaks Robert. It's Peter's reaction to, it's the fact that Peter is learning all of this that breaks Robert. But you'd have to have the right actor to do that. So if the son gets the gun and wants to shoot the girl to prove himself to his father, so it's up to the father to break the cycle and talk him back. Oh, that's an interesting scene. But I don't like that.
Change it, though.
What would cause... I don't like the conclusion of that scene, because then the son chooses not to shoot her and walks back. Well, you could still do it. The forgiveness arc would be between Robert and Alana, because it would be Alana's out for revenge and she's going to get her revenge, and then she's going to die right there. The son is pointing the gun at her. But he wouldn't be doing it for revenge, so she couldn't equate it to her.
Yeah, that kind of breaks the parallels. And I feel like that would make the father...
Megan says she likes that, Max.
I feel like that would make the father the main character, because then...
Well, that's what Max has been saying.
Yeah. I guess my question to you, Max, would be like, what about making the father the main character appeals to you?
I don't know if I like Peter's motivation being, I want to prove myself to my father.
So Max said, I don't know why, but for some reason I keep thinking of the father.
Yeah, that's a really good example.
From October Sky, or a slightly kinder version.
That's a really good example, because that's kind of what I would say, is how I imagined him a little bit. Maybe he's that way through Peter's childhood.
I guess, okay, for me, that to me...
Except for not a blue-collar worker.
Yeah, not a blue-collar.
A rich millionaire.
Yeah. I guess I feel like that would change the theme, which maybe we're open to changing the theme, but to me that would change the theme more toward repentance. Because it would have to be the father it would be Robert repenting of, I thought I was protecting
don't repeat my sins. What I did was wrong.
Yeah.
It ruined my life. It ruined our relationship. Do not repeat my sins.
Yeah, and it would him be repenting, and so it would change the theme.
I like that theme too.
Yeah, that's a good theme. It's a theme. It wasn't.
It's still within the, generational trajectories box.
I don't know. It still doesn't make. I feel like we would have the same problem though, because that would kind of take Robert's. Well, would it? Would it take Robert's arc away? Because he would walk into that already thinking he was wrong.
I mean, I think he has felt that he was wrong since Peter. Well, it depends on if Peter, words cut him out, if they have a broken relationship. Then I think Robert would be like, yeah, I done messed up, and I'm paying for the consequences, and he's had a long time without Peter knowing to kind of think through everything and regret and repent.
I guess to me, then this movie, the short film would be all about getting Robert to the point where he tells the truth. And if his relationship is already broken with Peter, why would he be scared of telling Peter the truth? Because his relationship is already broken. So it's not like he's afraid that if he tells him the truth, his son will hate him.
Father has more layers we can reveal through the story, at least for a short film. Well, but we've been trying to fix that about Peter.
Yeah.
I don't know if the answer is to not make him the main character. I agree that Robert has more layers, but I don't think that necessarily makes him a protagonist.
Indeed, because
it's the layers of the supporting characters that really flesh out and reveal the conflict within the main character.
Yeah, and yes, Robert has layers, but I don't really feel like he has an arc. Or the potential for an arc. Maybe a little.
He has a turn, but no arc.
Yeah, he has a turn, not an arc, and that's what makes the main character is an arc, and not necessarily layers. Layers help.
Layers help every character.
But,
yeah, I agree with you. If we made Robert the main character, then it would be a different story. And it would be a different theme about truth and repentance.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I don't know, I heard this somewhere that some of our film friends or something were talking about how there is a lack, it seems to be a lack of content that's about father-son relationships. And so I have thought about that, like, oh, it would be fun to make a movie about father-son, but then again, I'm not sure we are the best people to write about that. Yeah, because here we are writing a mother-daughter movie over on the side. So I like the piece of father-son and forgiveness and generational stuff coming through. I'm not sure I want to make a movie just about that, though, because I feel like we wouldn't be able to necessarily do it justice. I don't know what your thoughts on that are.
I mean, I think it's more subjective. I'm not inclined in that direction.
Cool. And that's what you get to do as the writer.
I think I'm more on board with making Peter more interesting. He who is blameless cast the first stone. That is the. I think that is actually the answer at the heart of the revenge question.
He would have to be really nasty.
To his dad?
To his dad.
I mean, there's Alana pointing a gun at him, and he's like, nope, I hate my dad more.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty nasty.
But yeah, that... So that when his dad dies or... So that when his dad dies, or when he comes to understand that his father really did love him. Like, because I can imagine Peter probably got really angry because he's like, well, my father just didn't love me, or my dad didn't value me for who I am, kind of way.
Well, I think it's more. He expected much from me without ever giving. I think that's more what it is.
And then to realize what his father gave up for him, kind of.
No.
No.
No, I don't think he's like, his heart is touched by, oh, really, all this time he did love me. I don't think that's it. I think that suddenly he realizes that there was a reason. You know? That he just kind of, that he was just, like, I don't believe this, because the parents should be the one initiating the relationship and investing into their children.
Right.
But he also sees that he contributed. He never got to know his dad.
Yeah, he never tried.
He never tried to know his dad, to understand where all of this was coming from, and because he was too hurt by what his dad did, and his dad put distance, and that's what he wanted. And so it's like it couldn't have played out a different way, really. That's the whole point of generational cycles. They can't really play out differently unless someone decides to change. And to change, they have to be told the truth. And, you know, it's like they will just perpetuate unless some truth is being told. But that is the cycle, yeah.
Sorry, I just had a thought.
But each generation contributes to the cycle between them as well.
What if somehow, in some way, Peter actually expresses, like, oh, I wish my dad was dead?
It's a little on the nose.
Or, like...
See, this is why I want to avoid things like that, because it's an acting piece. It's like, I want you to make me feel that without ever saying it.
Okay. Or I was thinking of, like, you know, in the beginning when Alana, like, says, well, why don't you call you, like, parents, your father or whatever? And he says something like, you know, oh, that old man could, I don't, language, but, yeah. You know, like, something, I don't know, I was just thinking about where he says, like, something like he wishes his father was dead, and then his dad is dead in front of him, and he's like, I wished for this. Okay, wait, there's a couple.
To make Peter more layered, what's a flaw he could have? Well, I think we've been talking about a flaw is holding a grudge, and...
Well, it's...
You mean like a permanent flaw? Like a deeply ingrained character flaw?
If we're going into character archetypes, he would be the rebel. And the rebels would... oh, man. Like, they tend to... isn't it they tend to just, like, destroy everything? Like, they're just like, rebel, overthrow everything.
Well, when you make rebellion your personality, yeah, you're a rebel without a cause at all points.
Yeah.
There's a difference between that and...
going against the grain.
Well, I think there's a rebel personality that the cause for justice is very near and dear to their hearts. And so they can't help but see all the injustice in the structures that exist, whether that be society or family or, you know, whatever the structure that they're in, that they're rebelling against. It's because they see the injustice that is there, and that gets their goat. You know, I think there's that version, whereas there's the rebel without a cause.
Yeah, so his flaw would be that in his rebellion, he doesn't take the time to understand, and he doesn't, you know, he naturally thinks he's right about everything, and that he knows all that he needs to know. But the story kind of reveals to him that he's like, wait, I didn't understand.
That's true. Like, rebels always think they know better.
Mm.
Sometimes they do. So a lot of times they really, really don't.
Yeah.
Because they didn't take the time to
Did you
understand. Yeah. I feel like that was one of my main problems with the script, was that I didn't get much as to what Peter's relationship with the father was, right? What if, instead of starting with just the son, both the father and son are tied up at the beginning along with the girl? I thought about that, but I didn't know how to make Peter the main character if you start with both of them. From the beginning, Peter as the protagonist. Because he does not have much to do until the end.
Mm-hmm. I personally like the idea of not having the father there at first, because it gives us a chance to discover what Peter thinks about his father, and like he would probably be a lot more free to say, like, the way the scene is currently set up, we have a lot more chances for him to give clues as to how he feels about his father than if his father was there. I feel like maybe, I don't know.
So she's undercover trying to figure out their relationship and if killing the son would actually hurt the father enough. I don't know if that's enough to pin a scene on, because it would be very obvious. I'm going to kill your son. No!
Well, the whole thing, the reason that she kidnaps Peter is to get to the father. So if she could just get the father, why would Peter even be there? Because
she wants to hear the father's confession.
Right.
And so
but why can't she just aim a gun at his head?
Who knows if that'll work? I don't know, maybe we could start with Robert, but I still feel like that would confuse people as to who the main character is. You know, she's like, Robert, confess your sins. No. Okay. Leaves the room, comes back with Peter. Robert, confess your sins.
Oh.
You know, it's
yeah, that would be confusing as to who's the main character. Okay, so she's...
Well, I don't know. It makes Alana the main character a little bit, because she's like, she brings Peter in, she's like, confess your sins. And Peter's like, he won't care.
He won't care.
And here's Peter. Robert hasn't seen him for a couple years or whatever, you know, and it's like, Peter, you know,
my son.
And Alana's just like, this was not what I was planning, but okay, let's roll with it. We're gonna have a nice little juicy spilled the tea session. I can see that setup working. I still think. Will you be confused on who the protagonist is? See, I don't care. I don't.
What do you mean?
I've gotten that note before as well. Like,
Who is the protagonist?
I read your script and I was confused until the end who the protagonist was. And I'm like, is this
That's a surprise!
But I understand it. I understand somewhat why you don't want that, because you want to be able to project where it's going.
Yes.
And setups and payoffs don't work. And especially, you know, subversion does not work if you don't know who the main character is, because you have to know where this story is going. And for that, you have to know what the quest is. I was just thinking that Max, and what if the son is with cahoots with Alana the entire time? This would give Peter the opportunity to show his hate for his dad. I don't feel like that.
Like to get a confession out of him? I feel like he wouldn't have to go through Alana to do that.
Like, why? I don't think that Peter and Alana are aligned. Then Robert admits something that changes Peter's perspective. Then Peter fights Alana for the gun, and Peter dies.
Peter dies? Oh, this is if the dad is the main character? We're getting our versions mixed up.
Rename Peter to the protagonist.
Exactly. Yeah.
See, I think you can make him the protagonist with the coverage, right? If the scenes are all shot from his perspective. So maybe we should name him protagonist. Then the filmmakers will get it. Oh wait, I'm the filmmaker.
Okay. I feel like
I don't think that Alana and Peter are aligned.
I agree.
Alana hates Robert. She wants him to die. Peter loves Robert and hates Robert.
Well, I think that's actually the what makes Peter change his mind in the end is that he realizes
Right,
that
Alana
if I
is
do
the
this,
path that I will go down.
Yeah, that she's actually his foil. Thank you, Max.
The coverage can do a lot for that.
Yeah. But yeah, because that's the thing is that Peter and Alana are not aligned, and so when Peter is faced with the choice, he realizes that if he does this, he will be aligned with her, and that he will.
In the name of openness, is there a version where Peter is aligned with Alana?
If she wants a confession, maybe.
If Peter always felt like Robert was keeping secrets from him.
Mm-hmm. And I can imagine that he's like, oh, I want to bring. That could play into the rebel part of Peter's character of, exposing his father, bringing things to light, and crumpling.
I just don't understand. It's vindictive. Not only does Peter walk away from his family, he also wants to destroy the legacy and destroy his father's reputation and destroy who his father is. Like, that's so vindictive. Why? I don't feel like that makes a very protagonist you could relate with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if they both want a confession and feeding into his rebel side and hate. I don't like that character.
Like, that wouldn't be a very...
How do you get from that character to forgiveness?
If he's already gone that far.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. Well, yeah, and
so again, it changes the theme of the story. I guess that's why I wasn't open to it at first, because that is what the root of it for me is. I wanted to be about forgiveness and revenge. And if you change Peter too much or Robert too much, it makes it about repentance and vindictiveness.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also
which is related. Like, it's still questions of justice and what do you deserve.
Indeed. But I do agree that Peter would be a lot harder to relate to. Because...
in this day and age, maybe not. I don't know.
I sure hope not. But, like, I feel like having...
You would have to make him on this crusade. See, that's what's the strange thing about Last of Us 2. They paint these characters on a crusade, and like you're supposed to be on their side,
and you're like,
but then it goes out of its way to show how awful they are and how they destroy the people and their relationships around them. And I'm like, okay, so is revenge a crusade or is it not?
Follow that.
And it's not like they did a bait and switch, I guess is what I mean. Like, a bait and switch is interesting where you're like, oh, Peter, he's bringing to light the awful things that his father has done. He's a warrior for justice and truth, and he wants it out there. It's a crusade, right? But then when we get into what Robert has done and why, Peter realizes he never talked to his dad about. He never got to know his dad, was never interested in actually understanding the bigger picture, and he got a lot of assumptions wrong. See, that's a bait and switch, where crusade for good, oh wait, it wasn't good. That's not what they do in The Last of Us. From the beginning, crusade for bad. Anyway. Fair, I'm more looking at Peter wanting truth, not harm to his father, but Alana wants to kill Robert, which Peter doesn't know till the end, but I do see how that could be an unbelievable character. Yeah, Last of Us 2 was awful. Like, I don't mind, it's not awful in that you can have whatever message you want, you know? people can convey what they want to convey. It was more that it was just like, this does not make a good story.
Yeah.
Convey what you want about the world.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really want to understand the author's version of the world, if that's what they think the version of the world is. Anyway. I have more than one rant loading.
I believe she's writing an essay.
Last of Us. Okay, anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, why would he want the truth if not... Like, if he wants the truth, why couldn't he go to his father and say, I'm leaving unless you will tell me the truth? And maybe he did that and Robert said nothing. And Peter walked away. What would entice Peter to come back? Like, what he would have to believe there's something. What truth is he searching for? I don't see him searching for the truth in a way that would be anything other than vindictive, because the truth has to serve something, and so in his search for the truth would just serve his own grudge towards his father.
Right. Like
and not some greater...
It would be different.
Quest towards the truth.
Yeah, it would be different if he wasn't related.
Yeah. I don't know. Anywho, we've gone over a lot of that. And I'm sure a lot of it will play, even the stuff we don't agree with, will play into how I write it.
Truth for... What?
Truth for Alana, not just Peter. They are girlfriend and boyfriend. I mean, we could do that. I decided not to do it. In the original version, they are. But in the original version, it was from the beginning. The original treatment that was too elaborate. What the quest was Peter hunting down and getting revenge on Alana for killing his father.
Yeah, his father was barely part of it. And he also had these hurts that she manipulated him, and
that was the plot line.
Yeah.
Not Alana getting revenge on Robert.
Right.
So I just don't see the need to make them boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yeah.
It just helped compel that plot line, that he needed revenge on her for how she betrayed him and deceived him and killed his father, plus all his own guilt towards and anger towards his father. Mm-hmm. That just helped make that plot line more. Losing my words. Understandable. Whew.
So we've talked about a lot of things. Are you feeling more inspired to write like a second draft, or?
Yeah, I think I'd have to beat it out.
Yeah, I think so. You'd have to beat it out as well.
And I'd have to figure out specifically what Peter's grudge with his dad is, very specifically. Where there's events that he can reference, and you never did this for me, Dad, or you pushed me to do this, Dad, or, you know, it's like, I need specifics.
Mm-hmm. Because I would be curious to see a version where Peter is the main character and he's not on good terms with his dad, and see if that would fix the current version before we, like, go off the rails. Because I agree that the current version is very close to what the original intent and vision was. It just...
Peter.
Yeah, Peter.
He's laying there like a limp fish for most of the
yes,
things.
Indeed. And also just... Okay, I did have a question. Why is it in an elaborate house? Why? Like...
Because it's the genre. It's like detective... Godfather... was the vibe inspiration.
Oh.
That's the only reason. And, okay, no, I did think it through a little bit, world building wise, thematically as well. Mansions, attics, those sort of things are visual representations of family secrets, specifically. A mansion would be like your family legacy and your family secrets.
That's true. I was just sitting here going, like, why does Alana just... she's just sitting on the mansion somewhere?
I know, it doesn't really make sense because for that analogy to work, it has to be their home.
Yeah.
Their family home. So I couldn't think of a different location, though, that would... Because I was actually trying to tie the location in with the movie and not just, we have access to this place, so...
You can't do, like, a basement?
Well, basement indicates dark, secret, like your monsters. Like your attic is memories, cellar is monsters, sort of idea.
That's true. Anybody got any fun attics?
Well, I don't think it's the right battleground. What is the battleground here? That's the question. What are they fighting over? And they're fighting over who's right. Who has a right to their grudge and their sins.
Yeah. A graveyard.
Courtroom. Graveyard. Because the consequences of sin is death. Wages of sin is death. But graveyard, courtroom, some sort of judgment, something to do with judging. Ooh, backstory, always helpful. Yep.
Yes. Something to do with judging.
Scales, weighing, coins, two sides of a coin. I'm just saying random things.
Yeah. All you're saying public buildings. Honestly, an attic is one of the best.
Really?
I would think, because
she's gonna lug two unconscious men up several flights of stairs to an attic.
I always thought Robert came willingly, but...
Well, that's true. But still, like, why go through the effort of going up to the attic? Unless you're hiding something. That's what the attic and the cellar represent, is hiding.
Right.
But we're not doing anything with that. They're not having to be quiet because there's other people in the house or anything. Like.
Yeah.
I like a courtroom, actually. Like an old abandoned courtroom is kind of funny. Kind of.
Like a... Is there an abandoned courthouse anywhere? I don't know. Real, like, normal modern courtrooms are not...
Pretty.
Not pretty. Not pretty at all. Because, I keep thinking of, like the Congress building or, like, something.
I know, like what you'd see in Daredevil or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we'll keep brainstorming on that one.
Yeah. I mean, the mansion, I do agree the mansion did help set a tone. It definitely helped add the, a luxurious tone to it, which helped the...
Inform who Peter and Robert are.
Yeah,
the problem is that Alana chooses the location.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, where I was just kind of like, I could just forget about it and be like...
It could also be the house that her mother died in.
That's true.
We're going to go back to the scene of the crime. Because that's where her psyche is trapped,
But then I feel like Robert would immediately know.
Oh, that's true. I feel like I've been here before.
Yeah. Because there's no way he's, like, forgotten about that. A bit on the nose with an old courtroom.
What if you just had a motel or poor-looking home and used lighting to show the two sides fighting? the problem with that is what it says and not necessarily what it doesn't say. So I understand, like, oh, we're wanting to send a message to location. Why don't you just not? And that's not really... Whatever location you choose will send a message. And so motel, poor looking home to me indicates... Well, it could be a couple positive things. If it were a motel, Alana doesn't have a home.
Yeah.
She's just kind of in this, and she's been in this, what do you call that? In-between space. She's never been able to settle her life or do anything with her life because she's just been stuck on this. So she doesn't have a house.
Dark void with single spotlight above. Yes.
Poor looking home. I don't know, they would indicate some things about Alana, and maybe that's better.
But the main character's Peter.
But Alana chooses the battleground.
That is true. But then I would almost say, like, okay, I like the idea of her coming, even though she chooses the battleground, she puts it on their terms, so she feels a lot more invasive. Like, I am coming to reveal your secrets. I am invading your space and you can't stop me, kind of way. Like, I think that's what the...
Ooh, like Alana breaks into his father's mansion and the father calls Peter. Like, we're just following Peter, and the first thing that happens is he gets a phone call from his dad, who he hasn't talked to in 2 years. And he shuts it off. But then it rings again and rings again. He's like, maybe I should answer this. And he does. But why would Robert agree
to bring Peter there?
But maybe it's just his dad's phone and it's Alana on the other side. And we could get some of the theatrics in there. She's like, I'm just a nurse and your dad said to call you and like something's happened, blah, 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 you know.
Oh.
And so we understand that
Peter's
the lair is still there. Hey. That's a thought. Yeah, that we show that Peter's estranged from his dad, but he still cares because he goes.
Yeah.
Like, that would say a lot about the relationship from the get-go. Without having to spell it out in the dialogue. All right, before we kind of wrap up here, was there anything else technical? You said not enough description.
Just at the beginning, mostly.
More description to set the tone.
Yeah, where I was just kind of like, is it dark? Is it, like... Yeah, just to like more like set the tone and set kind of like the feeling. And then I think I said I was a little confused what was happening in the beginning. Because suddenly a lot of switches. And I remember being like, her dialogue not making sense. But at the same point, I was like, well, that's what we're supposed to feel. Is that it doesn't make sense. But I remember being like...
You mean before the switch happens? This, on page 2 of the dialogue, where she's like, send a text.
Yeah, and then she's like, you're serious? And then like, why can't anything ever be easy? I was like, what? And then it was her and then the action says, like, she snaps her gaze to Peter and her fearful, hysterical show disappears. Cold, hard eyes glare at Peter, and I was sitting here like, what? You know, I was like, whoa, what's going on?
Subtext is everything. Is it secret? Is it safe? Wait, what is that from again? Oh yeah,
that's Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just what I remember is just being a little confused. I didn't realize that I was supposed to be confused. If that makes sense. Like, it was confusing, but it wasn't until I got through it that I realized I was supposed to be confused. Because Peter's confused. Okay, that's what it was. I didn't realize that because it didn't say Peter was confused. I didn't realize that I was supposed to be confused.
I see. The audience proxy was not doing his job.
Yeah. Or he was doing his job too well. I think that was mostly it.
Alrighty. Should we talk about the alternate idea that I had? I was like, let's change genres and make it a comedy. And it's a Mexican standoff with 3 different people who want revenge on each other. And then they're just fighting over who gets to kill who has more right to kill who, because they all want revenge on each other. And I didn't know how it would end, though.
Well, you were saying that if we make it like melodramatic, then you could see getting us to the point of, and I forgive you.
Oh, right.
That's what it was.
Comedy works when it actually has a little bit of heart in it, and when we get down to the point, and some of it is just a misunderstanding or something that happened between 2 characters long ago.
Who ate your cupcake?
Yeah, and just go straight into melodrama.
Yeah. I mean,
I forgive you. Well, I don't. You know, it's like, no, you killed.
Oh,
hi, Bobby.
Gonna have fun grabbing the
context for the last 40 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. You could do that. I don't think I would be a very good critique.
I don't think I'm up for comedy yet. I want to do comedy someday, but it's not my natural bent. And so someday I'll get there. I like drama. I'm finding I really, really like drama.
Yeah, I remember reading this and being like, man, this would be really fun to like direct, really fun to light, really fun to shoot, really fun to act. Like just the
Hey, one goal achieved.
Yeah, just like really leaning into the drama, because I don't like, we like big stakes. I don't think we've actually done anything like this dramatic. If you like, I mean, we do a lot of fights and we try to make our fights dramatic, but this one was the one that was like, oh,
I am really
and
looking forward to finding the line too as a director. Is like, what's too dramatic? And that's some of what I want to experiment with.
Because like you could really go lean into the art on this as well. I know, because I was thinking about like, how would you make a custom like signet ring and stuff? Of course, there'll have to be like some oranges on the table, but
Yeah.
for going after the Godfather and everything.
Bobby, we're pretty much just wrapping up, going through the script. Comedy is hard, but drama needs humor, don't you think, to flesh out characters? Not in a short film. Well, it depends on the length, really. I think, you need a little bit of break from the drama sometimes. And I think you can still point out the absurdity in drama, or you can understand the absurdity. We were talking a little bit about some of that in this script. In short films, tricky fit them both. Yeah, I've tried. Yes. I think you have to pick one and let the other arise when it will, but know your lane.
Yeah.
I think the process for them is completely different. Maybe not. We'll see.
Never written a dramedy. I don't think.
Unless we had any more notes. Did you guys have any more thoughts or notes on things that you read in the script?
We'll wait.
We'll wait for a sec. Well, I also wanted to ask, I'm thinking of doing live streams not at 5 a.m. Every few weeks or so, maybe once a month or something, to just talk about writing. And I was kind of curious what people wanted to, like, should we come with topics prepared that we're just going to talk about? Or you just want to do just like a a general Q&A or just kind of visit about what y'all are working on and what we're working on. Megan says, agreed, making successful short films is all about focus, not easy. Yeah, that's been the interesting thing. I think it got easier after writing a feature. Because it understood.
Yeah. I know, short films are like, oh.
I know. Now they're like, oh yeah, just
pound one out.
pound one out.
Yeah.
After the feature, with the feature, you just have so much more room to play, and you can kind of entertain ideas and storylines, and it helps you start to understand what short films are. What do you do with short films? What is the purpose? What is the point as a writer or as a director? And it's I find it way more easy to just laser focus in. Where'd the chat go?
I don't know.
Sorry, guys. Okay.
Oh.
Focus in on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to say.
Okay.
I'm always game for talking writing and film. Sounds fun, especially if it's not in the morning. Yes. I know. I knew the early morning ones would be not terribly popular, but it's what I have to work with, so. Because I have some topics that I can think of to kind of talk about.
Oh.
One of them being theme, incorporating theme. But I think a lot is wrapped up in that idea. I could probably break that up into a lot of different topics. A lot of what we touched on today, though, is I feel like this is a demonstration somewhat of what I've been thinking about process-wise, about purpose and theme and the bigger implications of that if you're wanting to be a writer, like, what do you need to be considering in purpose, in the themes that you're writing, in what you're trying to accomplish, and just having vision, casting vision, long-term vision.
Yeah.
Would be good to talk about. I think also one that I've been thinking about talking about is just process, about knowing your process, different things that are components of process, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Process. Bobby said something. Appreciate these live streams regardless of timing. I enjoy watching them later if needed. Oh, thanks for saying so, Bobby. I'm having fun. I'm having fun getting content out again without having to wait for all the editing and just bloop, there you go. It's not very polished, but it's real.
Yeah.
I don't know, what's on your heart with writing lately?
I do think theme has been on my mind a lot, that it's like I've always thought that was a personal preference of ours to write movies that have a theme or have a message kind of in it, and that it's like, oh, well, that, you know, every time somebody asks me to like critique a short film or whatever, I'm always going to be advocating for adding a message, adding a theme, and from some of the things that you've said, I've kind of gotten the impression that that's actually how you tell good stories. Like, you cannot actually tell a good story without a theme or a message in it. And so, like, I know that there's a lot of, you know, young writers out there who just are excited to make stuff, and I always like go, but like, you know, why are you writing this? What is your theme? What are you trying to convey? And like, I want to see more of that, of people having a theme, having a message, but not like a message that's in your face. I think some, probably people shy away from putting a message into their, like, okay, I hate the artsy short films that are just like, they're all about the angst. And when people talk about, oh, well, this is my way to express myself, I used to have a really big, like, I didn't understand what they meant, and I was always like, that just sounds super artsy, and just like, oh, so you like and then they would say, this is my way to express myself, and then it's just all about the angst of being an artist, and I'm like, do you not have an emotional outlet or something? Is that what this is? But after we've been learning more about story and theme and message, the expressing yourself is more, it's expressing what you think about something.
Or feel,
or how you feel about something. But
the problem I think that I have with what you're saying, where people are just like, it's all about the angst, is that they're not actually expressing what they feel about something. They're just expressing what they feel without any context, and without any pursuit of truth. And that's what it has to be about. Like, you want to be able to express everything, but it should be in the pursuit of truth and conveying truth.
Yeah. Well, and I think it comes down to, why are you making the film? Are you making the film for you? Or are you making the film for the people who are going to watch it?
And if you're making the film for you, don't be surprised when no one watches it.
Yes.
I'm just saying, like, you didn't make it for other people.
Well, I mean, there is something to be said for modeling your, like, make the movie. Like, I've heard a lot of people that are like, well, I made the movie that I would have wanted when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. Which,
that's different, though.
Yeah. Sorry, what did...
Megan says, any topic, you guys are fun to talk to, and I have a lot of great ideas. Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
It's been a lot of fun to hang out with you through these two, Megan. And just hear, you have a lot of really good thoughts on writing. Without theme, there isn't purpose or satisfaction in the story. Action, reaction, and shock and awe can only take a story so far. I agree with that, but I view it differently. I don't view it as you can choose to have a theme or not. Your story will have a theme. The question is, do you actually want to be in charge of what it says? Because you will, if you don't, it will accidentally say a lot of things you don't mean, or be just incomprehensible. Kind of the same thing. Truth is a rational guardrail. Is that a quote, or you just say it? Like, that's a cool quote. Rational guardrail. Yeah.
Yeah, the only other thing that I've been thinking about is the art of actually writing the script. I don't know. I've been thinking about that more, because it's been a process. It's been a process for both of us of, like, figuring out, like, the actual, because, like, I was talking about that more at the beginning of this live stream of, like, writing the action from the perspective of the character, and not the audience. But, like, it is the audience, but I don't know, I was just thinking of, I was writing up some notes on a script recently, and a lot of my notes was like, okay, there's a lot of camera direction in the action that isn't, like, it's not really necessary to tell the story, but it wasn't formatted like actual camera direction in, like, a shooting script.
It was just lines of action?
Yeah, but it was, like, talking about, like, and then we see this. And I'm like, well, that's a camera direction, and not, you could, but, because, like, the action, in my opinion, should be in the story world. And so it's not about, we see this and that, and, like, there was one particular scene where the way, you could tell that the way the writer wrote it, he wanted the scene is supposed to be, and the camera is actually supposed to be the character's POV. And so that was just written into the action, like, and then we switch to the character's POV as we see this, instead of actually writing it like,
well, it's technical.
Yeah, it is very technical. Yeah, so like I have like.
Well, I mean that's just not having
and,
technical knowledge of how to write something like that.
Yeah, but I think you can write technical things in an artistic way, because like you could write that whole scene as like, and his vision is going in and out, and blood drips in through his vision, instead of all caps shot. This is the POV.
Yeah.
So, like, there's a way to write the action of the script in a way that conveys what you would want a DP to shot list it without actually listing any shots. And I don't know, it got me like, show, not tell. Show, not tell. Anyway, that's been on my mind recently. If you're talking about what's been on my mind.
I have lots of thoughts to say, but maybe we should save it for a different live stream.
Maybe? Okay.
All right, well, I think we got to wrap it up. Thank you, Megan and Max, for hanging out with us. That was really fun to get your input on the script. I will get back to writing this. I'm kind of working on our feature in my morning sessions right now.
Oh, okay.
You should come. Lizzy, you should get up at 5 a.m. and also write. I can't convince her to do it.
I don't know. I have actually been waking up just like randomly at like 5:45 every morning.
Come at 5 a.m. Just open your laptop and pick something to work on.
I have to think about that.
Anyway, I will get back to this story at some point. I think I got to work through our feature for another week or so to get that kind of rolling. And then I will probably get back to this and revise it because I do want to be able to shoot it. This was lots of fun, guys. Thanks. Can't wait to see the script come to screen. Thanks, Megan. Thank you. All right. I think we're going to... Oh, you know, I should have shown some of the script on a live stream. I forgot about doing that while we were talking about script. I was too busy looking at it myself.
We didn't really talk about...
Oh, well. I'll do better next time.
Yeah. Okay.
Some people enjoy sleep, Annie.
No.
I counted it out, though. If you want to get 8 hours of sleep and wake up at 4:30, which is what I do, to be here by 5, you have to go to bed at 8:30.
Yeah, not happening.
Yeah, I don't go to bed at 8:30. This is why I only do it 3 days a week, so that I can actually catch up on my sleep for the other days, and just I'll just be sleep deprived for a few days a week. It's for now. It's worth it to be getting some content down on paper. Gosh.
Indeed.
All right, Bobby says thank you. Thank you, Bobby, for tuning in.
You.
And Noah. All right, I will be back tomorrow morning at 5 a.m.
I won't be here.
Bring your projects. No, I do really want to say this. I have been surprised. Like, I knew this, but now I know it, you know, at how you're only like, I only work for an hour and a half in the morning. And I'm like, an hour and a half, how much can you get done? But I've been really surprised by how much I get done by doing that 3 days a week. So if you are just feeling frustrated with how much you're not getting done and how hard it is to find time, I'm gonna preach a little bit on the daily. A little bit every day does add up, and it does matter to do that. I wrote a whole short film and half an essay and and developing a feature, and it's only been 3 weeks. So don't discount the little bits here and there and how every little bit adds to your progress. Bobby's like, I won't be there. I'll watch after. Alrighty. Well, you guys have a great rest of your day. We're going to get going. We will see you. I'll see you tomorrow if you're there. Or I'll see you on the replays. We'll try and do another live stream like this in a few weeks, I think. I want to. We'll see.
We'll see.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.